trust that you're going to certainly get a benefit out of what happens today and what is presented. There's some really well-versed people in the field of PDS and the latest technology that's going ahead there. Before we start, I just want to give you a little bit of information. I got asked a question this morning by one of our members. Am I the new Nico? No, I most certainly am not. The way that we are operating in the interim, remember that ASPASA is run by the management committee, the MANCOM, and then Marius, who's the safety auditor, myself, the environmental auditor, Anneke, who's our very stable lady in the office with Paula. We are running ASPASA. We are making sure that it is continuing as business as usual. So let's put that question aside, and you can all relax that you still will get the service that you should get from ASPASA. Before we start, and as is customary, we just want to make sure that everybody understands that this ASPASA is a industry body which represents all aspects of the small-scale mining and its members, and as such, any non-competitive behavior is not acceptable. So if at all during today's proceedings you feel that there is any non-competitive behavior, please raise it. Put your hand up and tell us so that we can rectify it immediately. We don't want to be in contravention of any laws or get into trouble with the Competitions Commission. The point of what ASPASA is for the benefit of all our members, and it's an equal benefit. So please keep that in mind. Okay. Today's meeting is really about PDS and the TMMs and the impact that it's having and what is the requirements thereof. And folks, it's actually becoming a very, very important part of what's going on. A little bit of background for you. There is legislation in the way. The speakers, I'm not going to steal their thunder, but they will tell you about it. Just something is what we know, and this is fact. TMMs across the world, and this is a global phenomenon as well as in South Africa, are responsible for the most injuries and fatalities on site. And I think let's use that as the background of today and how we manage our TMMs, going forward, because obviously we want to have a zero harm culture and an environment in the ASPASA family. So with that, I would like to introduce our first speaker, and it's Letitia van der Berg, and Letitia is from AfriMat. Letitia has done a lot of work on PDS. She's been exceptionally well involved in it, and I think we can certainly benefit from her knowledge and whatever is whatever she has there to tell us. So without further ado, Letitia, thank you very much, and the floor is yours.
Morning, everybody, and thanks for the opportunity. And just by all means, I'm no expert in collision avoidance systems, but we've walked the journey with the Minerals Council of South Africa and with our PDS supplier. So just give me a moment. I'm not going to keep my camera on. I just wanted to show my face, and then I'm going to share my screen.
I just want to chip in there, Letitia. I think the term expert is very subjective. So don't be too modest. You know a lot more than most people do. So.
Thank you. Is my screen visible?
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, Anneke. So in short, I think where I want to start is why invest in TMM collision prevention and collision avoidance system trials as small-scale miners. So why we embarked on it is fourfold. So the innovation is the ability to see change as an opportunity, not a threat. So what can we learn from this technology? there's always a benefit in technologies, and sometimes you can take your manual processes and learn from the technology. The other item is sometimes we're too busy for improvements, but that improvement can improve your efficiency. It can possibly improve your fuel usage. There's a lot of benefits that links to the technology. And then the main one, I know many small scale mines say, but the cost involved. We've been walking a journey with our PDS supplier now for the last 4 years. And I can tell you the prices have come down significantly. There are units out there that is available for small scale mine equipment. It cannot do all the bells and whistles, but the price has definitely come down. And that was one of the main reasons we also got involved, is to, I don't want to say fight the supplier, but to work with the suppliers to show them that small scale mining has different needs to the bigger operations. And then safety doesn't happen by accident. We have to look at safe controls and all safe controls to see how it can benefit us. And the last thing we want is a TMM pedestrian accident, and we did nothing about it, because the possibilities are there that it can happen on any of our sites every day. So that is why we decided to embark on it. I cannot ignore control 1 to 6. Definitely not. So just for those who cannot remember what the control 1 to 6 are, it's your site requirements, segregation controls, operating procedures, authority to operate, fitness to operate, and operating compliance. And my question to you is, and even to myself and my AfriMatters that dialed in, what are you doing about measuring and monitoring these controls? You cannot put it in place and not enforce it. And that's daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually. You cannot take your focus off these because it's one of our major risks. And then traffic management. How far are you with the implementation of the traffic management plan? And did you know that the technology of collision prevention and avoidance systems can actually enhance your traffic management processes, as a reminder. Then just what does the site requirements, segregation controls, operating procedures consist of? If you didn't know, the site requirements is all your traffic management plans, your equipment specifications, your roads, segregation done by berms, your access control, traffic segregation, time scheduling, operating procedures daily on your equipment, your SOPs, your procedures, your COPs, authority to operate, your licensing, your competencies, fitness to operate, fatigue testing, even if it's just questionnaires, drug and alcohol testing and medicals. Operating compliance is your inspections, auditing, machine conditions, and monitoring. So that is the control 1 to 6. And then your trial or your investigation on your level 7, 8, and 9. So a few examples of control checks and where we found good things and bad things. If you look on the left top, you'll see that they're crisscrossing an entrance. So there's the entrance. I'm not sure if you can see my cursor, but the entrance is on the one side, and then they crisscross. And by just observing, standing on the top with the eagle view, we could call the TMM lead, the 213.2 appointee, call them up and just checked, why are we crossing? We shouldn't. There's an in and an out, and they fixed it immediately. You'll see there's a robot here, a little robot at the bottom left, where it's a one-way in and out. So if it's red, the sales truck know they must wait. If it's green, they know it's empty. Pedestrian walkways, are they still using it? You see there's a shortcut, the red arrow. They're crossing because the connection point for the pedestrian walkway is where the red arrow is, and it doesn't end where the green arrow is. So you can make a small adjustment to your pedestrian walkway. Then parking for visitors versus your mine vehicles. the separation even of that, and we check that. Operating processes to see if the operator uses his chock block and follows the protocols that comes with vehicles. Your signage, that is still visible. And then even in small scale mining, you can make zones. This mine specifically used their fence and a berm for a walkway. So if you enter the area, you know you are in an orange zone, and there's no TMM in that area. And then protection of your diesel bowser, where you fill your diesel, making that safe. And you can see utilizing what is on site, EME vehicles, and then just proper parking areas. Just to remind everybody not to think that you've got a walkway and you think people are using it, but you can clearly see that they are bypassing it. So never stop focusing on those controls. Then when we started with collision avoidance systems, we did tests and trial according to the earth moving equipment safety roundtable specifications. And for those who were very familiar with it, it consisted of these scenarios that you are looking at, your head on, reverse on, backup. So we tested according to that. And then you would test level 7, 8, or 9. But then obviously accidents happen, technology changed, it improved, and then you have to change the way you look at it, and your tests and trial also have to adapt to it. With any technology, you cannot just install it and think it's going to stay the same. There will be changes as you progress in the process. So I wanted to just share with you this video. It's an actual video clip of a level 9. Now, these two vehicles are approaching each other, and none of the operators used their brakes at any time. This is level 9 in operation in a controlled situation. Is it playing on your side?
Yes, thank you, Letitia.
You'll see it's starting to slow down. It is not the operators. Now, for a group health and safety manager, this was not one of my favorite days, where you have these millions of rands driving towards each other, slowing down and stopping. I'll play it one more time, because I know sometimes the network can be a problem. But this is in a controlled situation. Imagine this in a non-controlled environment where the operators are operating daily. So does level 9 work, and will it stop at certain speed levels? The answer is yes. So level 9 testing, what made me worried, this is an actual level 9 in 2 of our equipment at one of our operations. The orange in the left and the right-hand side is where the motion inhibit kicked in. Look how many times it did kick in. And the red alert was something in the environment that he could collide with, because there's radar also in a level 9. Our small scale mine biggest slow down and stop false alarm was on the left-hand side, where the vehicle addressed the stockpile, and the back of the front end loader, the radar picked up the soil, the ground level, if you can put it that way. So we had to adjust that. All other were relevant to collision paths. And if this doesn't wake anybody up, then I don't know, because collision can happen in our operations multiple times every single day. So the outcome of all these tests, the extension of the promulgation date took place because we were a little small voice from small scale mining with the Minerals Council on the TMM collision avoidance program, where we could give them our results and show them that the suppliers, it works, but there's certain tests that still not 100% pass rates. So the technology was not ready. Therefore, we can say that as testing, as small-scale mining, assisting industry not to implement something that is not ready. Then in the last year, Nsiki, you can just correct me, the last year there was SECD, Safety Engineering Competency Development Institute standards developed for level 9. But even if we say level 9, your level 7 and 8 must still also detect in certain frames. And we test everything according to the same standard. So remember the scenarios under EMIRST? The SECD now has enhanced the testing. So for instance, if you have offloaded people, that the unit will not move until the pedestrians are away. If there's any block or rock or boulder or any concrete building that can stop the unit from picking up pedestrians, articulation of equipment. So the testing is now enhanced where it comes to pedestrians. And unfortunately, this had to be learned by accidents that happened with PDS, or I must get used to it, CPS and CAS units. PDS is the old semantics around it. And the other thing that also changed is speed limits, that you can fence speed limits. You can arrange following distances because your delineators always falls over. And this can now slow down the back vehicle and keep the 50-meter following distance. And then also around bends. And then if LDVs and ADTs, if the roads are different, then it will give the yellow fleet the right of way. So these are intersections, different types of intersections, and when which vehicle will have right of way. I'm not going to go into the detail because it's in the SECD documents that we can share. I'm sure Nsiki and them will share it as well. So just the different rules and when your level 7 and 8s and 9s must detect. Passing slow vehicles like a grader and then broken down TMM, which vehicle will slow down and stop and which ones not, and the detection thereof. And then head-on collisions, specifically around bends. This circle around this ADT maintaining the distance, I know they're going to change it. It's not a round circle, but that would be how far do you want them away from each other and when will which vehicle react and respond. Once that was not also part of the EMIRST was at the dump sites and in the pit itself, that was not tested, and then hard parks and on ramps. The detection and when it should start detect and which vehicles should be allowed to move, and false alarms, how do we manage that? So the main thing is a socio-technical system because you still have people. You still have your old infrastructure at your mines because in quarries we can't fix traffic management 100%. We've got the technology, we've got the culture at our operations, we've got processes and procedures, and then goals and metrics. And how do we bring all of this together? And it is quite a challenge. I must tell you, it is not an easy road for the PDS suppliers, this CAS and CPS suppliers, but there's a lot of wins that has already been made with the OEMs. I know I cannot mention OEMs, but I know there's only one that we still have a bit of challenges with the technology itself, but all the others are on board now. So the SECD gap analysis has got 132 lines. So our gap analysis that we've done compared to the EMIRST to now, we've got 78 yeses that the supplier of the unit can say yes, we can do this 100%. And some of these we've already tested under EMIS, but not all under the new SECTI standard. 27 partial, 18 knows, and 9 they are still investigating. So is the technology ready according to SECTI, the draft SECTI, with 54 uncertainties and not tested yet? The technology, in my opinion, is not ready yet. And do we have time to finish all these adjustments and live testing on our sites? And I think this is my concern, that the new date that's been promulgated, not promulgated, been in industry is December 2023. And that's a year and a little bit. And I don't know how quick the suppliers will be able, and this is only one supplier, the supplier that we are utilizing, and they one of the front runners in level 7, 8, and 9 technologies. And that's it from me. I didn't go into any technical details because it is beyond me. I must be honest with you. The software writing in the background to make this work is huge, and that's why we've got the Insikis of the world to assist us. And that's it from me. Thanks, Anthony.
Thank you, Letitia. Thank you very much. I think that was very informative. Folks, are there any questions for Letitia? Bert, I see you have your hand there.
Yes, thank you. Letitia, can you explain on the for the sake of my colleagues, if you don't have PDS systems in, where must you be, on what level must you be, and what must be in place to get the exemption for it? Can you please explain that for us?
So the process to follow is, number one, you have to do a TMM risk evaluation. And that risk evaluation includes industry incidents. It includes your own incidents. You can even look at the ASPASA member incidents like we've done right in the beginning in it's about 5-6 years ago, maybe a bit longer. So first you must do that TMM risk evaluation. That will then determine your level of risk, if it's significant or not. If you follow the Australian Metacom risk process, it's very hard to override it. Then number one, you will start with your traffic management in all the segregations and your hard parks, small and large vehicles. And then you can approach the DMRE to go and get that exemption, but it's not a straightforward, easy process. So that is what you need to do up front before you even get to level 7, 8, or 9.
But I just want to come in here as well. Having been on the operational side for quite a while, and having been quite involved in the traffic management side, the risk assessment that Letitia is referring to, you actually have to go back historically as well on your operation, and it's highly unlikely that you'll find that you don't have a significant risk in some area if your reporting is correct. So please, have a look at that very seriously and make sure that those risk assessments are done honestly and very comprehensively. Remember what it's about. It's all about risk aversion and limiting the risk. So if you say you don't have a risk, but you do, and you have an accident and someone's killed, then there's going to be pretty serious consequences.
If I can just add to that, the traffic management plan, if you follow the MOSH Surface Traffic Management Plan guideline, which includes your haul roads, the diesel delivery area, it covers your access from the access road to your gate, then your chances are very good that you will be able to manage it properly. But then the maintenance, and that's why I started off with control level 1 to 6. You cannot now put traffic management there and think it's going to be sorted. You have to prove how are you going to day-to-day, weekly, manage and enforce the use of that traffic management and maintain it.
just to add on to what Letitia is saying there, your traffic management, this whole thing is a living document. It never goes to sleep there. You know, you have to, it's a continual thing, because as your operational requirements change as well, so your plans are going to have to change, so etc. And as the one photograph that Letitia showed of the two arrows with pedestrian the walkways or crossings there, exactly the same thing happens with your TMMs. You know, you'll find that your operators will tell you that something is not right, they can't work effectively. So you've got to look at this thing holistically, and you've got to, it's something you've got to keep your hand on all the time. It doesn't, there's no one silver bullet here. Are there any other questions for Letitia? Okay. Dirk Erasmus, hi. Hello. Can I ask you to switch your camera off, please? Talia, I see you have a question there.
I just wanted to ask if it's possible for Letitia to share the presentation with us.
The presentation, yeah, the presentation is recorded, so you will be able to access that. Annika will put it on YouTube for you.
I mean I meant her presentation, the slide presentation as well.
Letitia, are you happy to do that?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
Thank
super.
you.
Thank you very much for that. Dirk Erasmus, can I ask you to switch your camera off, please? We'll just try and save the bandwidth of it. Hello, Dirk, can you hear me? Okay, let's carry on. All right, folks. Our next speaker is somebody who's been very involved in the in TMM and the whole story there, and that's Nsiki Pokwana. Nsiki has been around with us, has been part of us for a long time now. There we go. Hello, Nsiki, Minerals Council. He's been one of the leading people in this this area. And Nsiki, thank you for joining us. And the floor is yours.
Thank you once again for this wonderful opportunity to share these details with you. Like Letitia, I'll also just switch off my camera for now while I do the presentation. Yeah, needless to say, Letitia stole most of my thunder there with her presentation. But perhaps it's also important to see that, you know, what we are preaching as the MOSH team is being applied practically in operations. And thank you so much, Letitia. You have been such a blessing on the journey. We're really not complaining at all. We are actually glad. My screen is showing a bit differently. Apologies, colleagues. Let me just reshare. I see that I can't move the presentation. Let me try. All right. Is the presentation showing in presentation mode on your side, Anton?
It's still coming through. Let's just give it a moment. Annika, is it coming to you?
No, I can't see it yet.
No, all right. Let me just
let's try again and
stop sharing again. Yeah, apologies, colleagues. These things happen.
These things happen, and we're all familiar with it. So.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we had a power dip and the generator kicked in. So I'm just wondering if that has happened. Yeah. All right.
Folks, while Nsiki's still getting his presentation sorted out there, you know, MOSH is really quite a phenomenal organization, and they have enormous value that they can share with you, and they're so willing to do it. So I would really encourage all our members, if you haven't got your traffic management things in place, get hold of the guys at MOSH. They really They do fantastic work, and you're going to have, you know, the top specialists in the country helping you with that. So please, you know, just keep that in mind.
All right, now everything is frozen. Let me try again. All right, colleagues, while I'm trying to get myself ready on this side, yeah, as Anton mentioned, we are part of the Minerals Council, the Old Chamber of Mines, and we are really here for the industry. And all our initiatives, we say that we always say they are by industry for industry, in that, you know, members of the Minerals Council are responsible for close to 90% of all mineral production in the country. And for that reason, you know, we serve the industry on all fronts, including on the safety front. And our CEOs have completely agreed that when it comes to safety, there is no competition. We will share whatever it is that is available on the safety front. So that is our real mission and mandate. And with what Letitia has presented, like I said, I will just show, you know, the theory, the background, and all of that. Annika, I just sent you my presentation. Please check if you can share from your side, because the share button is just refusing on my side.
Let me quickly pick it up for you.
All right.
And Siki, can I
Okay,
just,
it's still coming. Yeah.
Can I just
Yes,
chip in here for a moment? Please repeat whatever it is, even if Letitia has mentioned it, because I think it's important for our members and participants on the call to understand the importance of these things. So, you know, if there is a bit of an overlap, it's not an issue. You know, it's an underlining of what needs to be done, because I think we're at a stage now where time is running out, and if people haven't got these measures in place, they need to really act very quickly. So, you know, don't hold back on what you were going to present for us.
Vicky, I just want to confirm, did you send it to office at ASPASA? Vicky?
Ziki, are you with us?
I think we have a connectivity problem. Anthony, maybe
Yeah.
we can swap around.
Yeah, okay. I think what we'll do is, folks, then I think we'll just let Nsiki get these things sorted out. I'll carry on then, just with what I was going to present to you. All right. So basically, what I was going to talk about is the impact that TMMs are having on neighbors and the communities, and my focus will be largely from firstly from an operational perspective, and secondly from the environmental perspective, and myself being in that area. So let me just share this quickly with you, and we can get going. Annika, can you see that?
No, not yet. There you go. There you go.
There you go. Okay, super. Thank you. All right. So, folks, yeah, TMMs, as we all know, are crucial components of our open cast mining operations. We can't do without them. And, you know, I think that today's, the whole meeting today is how do we do this properly, and how do we do it safely and with as little impact as possible. So the safe operation of the equipment is really vital to the sustainability of any operation. And the emphasis is on safety, as you know, in all aspects. That's safety, health and safety, and environmental safety. Your TMM activities, they have a significant impact on the environment and neighbors and communities, and it's both on and off site. And please, you know, when you are planning and looking at things, have a look at your off-site impact as well. And this is more from an environmental side, but there are things that one can do to reduce your impact on that. So operational activities, they need to be planned and implemented in a way so that we can reduce the impact of dust and noise caused by TMMs. And you'll see why I focus on dust and noise a little later on. So my goal is in this meeting today is to ensure that our TMMs have the least possible impact on the environment and the surrounds, that they are operated safely at all times, and that the operations are able to operate sustainably. It is critical that our operations are able to operate sustainably. It's difficult at the moment, we know that, and everybody is looking, you know, at ways in which to be more sustainable and more efficient. As Letitia mentioned earlier on, the implementation of some of these systems has led to cost reduction, has led to more efficiencies. I personally experienced that as an operational manager. A good traffic management system made us more effective and more efficient. So just to give you a quick thing on sustainability here, I'm not going to stay on this too long. We have three basic circles. The guys that have done audits with me will be familiar with this slide, but it's important to understand that we've got the natural environment, which is the red circle, your social environment, which is your green circle, and your blue circle, which is your economic environment. And those three need to be in balance in order to get us to the yellow spot in the middle, which is sustainable development. If any one of the three is out of sync, it affects the other one negatively. And you know, you're going to ask me, where does traffic management or collision avoidance fit in here? It fits in very strongly on your economic and social sides, because if you have an accident, the cost to your operation is enormous. The people are going to get hurt. So you have a social issue, you have an economic issue, and it just your sustainability goes out of the window. So, you know, that's just a little bit of background there. Neighbors and communities, and this is also an important part of what's happening in our operations. Formal and informal communities are encroaching on operations, and your traffic management is going to affect those communities. So the communities, and this is something we've seen across the country, I think everyone's aware of it, they have the ability to disrupt your operations. You know, if you're creating a lot of dust and noise, you're going to have complaints from your neighbors, you're going to have people getting aggressive and all sorts of things that are negative to your operation. So it's important that we get this thing right from, you know, and as soon as possible. Of course, good community relations are important. From ASPASA's perspective, ASPASA gets a lot of complaints, well, not a lot, but we get complaints from across the country about mining operations. And the classification of these complaints is the following. 11% is dust, 18% is noise and vibrations, 22% trucks and truck management. That's both on and off site. So if you just take the first two, for example, that gives you 29% of the complaints that are received by ASPASA relate to dust, noise, and vibrations. Now, that's almost a third. Obviously, blasting comes into that, but TMMs and operations fit into there as well. So that's, you know, why I'm putting this in, is to show you that there's a big part of what your TMMs are contributing to the complaints in the communities. Then, of course, trucks and truck management. Remember, with TMM, with PDS and the traffic management, trucks and truck management, both on and off site, comes into the mix. So TMMs are sources of dust and exhaust emissions. That's where the environmental side comes into it again. They have an impact on our environment and the air quality. You all are doing your various tests and sampling and trying to keep those dust levels down. So dust and exhaust emissions are sources of atmospheric pollution, and the problem that you have here is that it's not contained within the site boundaries. We've seen some horrendous pictures of operations that are running and creating enormous amounts of dust. And in that is, of course, your emissions as well. So your neighbors and communities are affected by the dust and the emissions. And it's becoming a much bigger issue these days, because people are far more aware of their health, of the impacts that dust and emissions are having on their health. Engine noise, reverse alarms, loading and unloading activities all contribute to the noise generated by the operations. And one needs to, and this is, you're going to say, well, what's this got to do with traffic management? It's got an enormous amount, because if you are running optimally and you are running, you're reducing the unnecessary traveling, all the noise levels go down, the reversing up to loading and unloading points is reduced, your loading activities are more efficient, your unloading activities are more efficient, your fill factors, all those sort of things come into the traffic management. And then, of course, we know that communities and neighbors are affected by this noise, but the impact of noise is amplified at night. And this is something I've found in quite a few operations, that when we've been doing audits, the guys don't tend to understand the impact that the night shifts have on communities, even though they are relatively far away. We all know that noise is amplified at night. People complain about reverse alarms, etc., etc. And I'm not saying take them away, please. That's not what I'm saying. We need to operate them we need to have as little impact as possible. So we need to be practical about it. In terms of dust control measures, most operations that I've seen this year so far have had very good dust control measures. What I have found is that the maintenance on some of these is sometimes not as good as it should be. And then, of course, effective traffic management on site, that remains a concern, because there've been some really good sites. They're really effective. Some are thinking that they're effective. They're not as good as they should be, and some are just completely non-existent. So, please have a look at this with the matter of urgency. It's not as difficult as it sounds. It just takes commitment, and it needs somebody who's going to manage it, and generally somebody from one of the senior levels, as well as the as well as operational people, and operators must be involved in it. So the poor traffic management, or proper traffic management, should I say, does reduce your dust and noise, which is caused by your TMMs. The systems need to be implemented and upgraded continually. It's a living document, a living plan. You will find that it's not a once-off. It's not a once-off at all. You need to continually look at it, and you need to listen to what your operators are telling you as well. Folks, on maintenance, obviously this relates to the noise and emissions of TMMs. Again, we're looking at that. Proper maintenance. Some operations are doing fantastic work. Some guys are saying, they can't afford it, so they're not doing it as regularly as they should. I think that's a bit of it's a topic for discussion. My personal opinion is that a well-maintained machine is going to be a lot cheaper to run than a badly maintained one. And of course, you're going to have less impact on your environment in terms of noise and emissions. Something which we also find is sometimes is lacking is your proper and regular operator training. It does go a long way, and it will assist you once you've implemented a traffic management plan. If your operators are really up to speed, they will know what to do, and they'll be able to contribute to your plan and make it a successful plan. The unnecessary traveling around of TMMs, that is something which I've found on numerous sites. And, please have a look at that. It's not only causing unnecessary noise and dust and emissions, but the fuel that they're burning, doing nothing. And certainly at the cost of fuel today, I think it's critical that we look at that to make the operations more cost effective and sustainable. The big culprits mostly are loader operators who have, I don't know where they learn it from, but they have this habit of just needing to drive around and looking for something to do instead of parking the machine. So yeah, just a heads up on that one. So in conclusion, please, we need to ensure that our traffic management systems are implemented and are functioning correctly. We need to control dust and noise at source, and proper maintenance of your TMM and your dust suppression methods is essential. And if we can reduce the impact that the operation has on the environment and the neighboring communities, then we are on the winning podium. And it all fits in with proper traffic management and collision avoidance systems. Folks, that's basically what I have to say for the moment. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to take them. Tisha.
Anthony, can we get a few of these dust suppliers, that additives that they put to the water carts, to maybe come and present to industry? So now it's a very expensive thing, but I know there's been other solutions. I just haven't gotten around.
There's some really good products out there which are easy to apply. I think what we'll do is, and Annika, maybe you can just make a note of that. We must just have a look-see and then get a couple of folk to come and present and give us some ideas, because it does make an enormous difference.
Sure thing, will do.
Okay, super. Thank you. Any other questions? Tulisani.
Yes, thank you.
Did I pronounce it correctly?
Yes, you did.
Okay,
You did.
okay,
Thank you,
Thank you.
Anton.
Okay, excellent.
Yes.
All right. Please, yeah, your question.
Okay. I just have a question with regards to the reduction of noise levels. You know, the noise decibels in the evening with night shift. How best can we reduce our noise levels at night? Because as you said in your presentation, noise travels further in the evening. How best can we mitigate that on operations wherein we do have to operate until late?
I think the first thing, and it's something which I found a lot, is unnecessary driving up and down or traveling up and down. You know, if the guys have got, and this is where the traffic management system comes in. If the optimum routes are taken, then of course you're reducing the amount of traveling that's carrying on. That will reduce it as well. Then you've around your plant and things, which we're not talking about now, but I mean, you can screen it, etc. If your machines are properly maintained, for example, your exhaust systems are working properly and not got holes in, making excessive noise. It's a lot of little things that you need to put into place to achieve what you want to do. So, have a look at it and certainly assess it and see, are you doing things the right way? And if not, put the corrective actions in place. Any other questions? Okay, super. Is Nsiki back, Annika?
Yes, I'm back online.
There you go, Nsiki. Now we've got you.
Awesome.
Okay, right.
Letitia,
all yours, Nsiki.
All right, Letitia, do you mind if I try it one more time on my side? And then if it fails, then you can be the backup. Thanks for your assistance. Is something showing at least?
Yes, thank
Yeah,
you.
it's there in Siki.
Presentation mode.
Perfect.
Finally. Thanks, Annika and Letitia. We've been running around in the background here. Colleagues, once again, my presentation has 3 sections, but it goes into the details of the what and the where. So you'll be able to locate the documents yourselves and conduct the exercises that Letitia spoke about earlier. I'm going to start with a timeline just to discuss, where do we come from? Back in 2013, the Mosh TNM team, that's before my time, gathered together engineers, engineering managers, and heads of engineering from the open pit and surface sector, including the quarries. I think Letitia was part of the team back in the day. And they looked at developing a traffic management leading practice by studying several operations around the country. Now, while they were doing that, in 2015, we know that the regulator kicked in with the TMM regulations of Chapter 810. And 2 of those clauses were suspended. Now, the 2 that were suspended were for underground vehicle to person, automatic slowdown and stop, as well as surface vehicle to vehicle, automatic slowdown and stop, because the technology was simply not ready, as Letitia also mentioned. In 2016, there was a lot of debate, obviously, in 2015. The Minerals Council kicked in, and a date of 2020 was punted about. It was never made official. It was never written on any document or in any meeting minutes and so forth. But the Minerals Council kicked in to try and get ready for 2020. And Letitia mentioned the Australian risk assessment that was developed, that looks at historical data and so forth, to try and single out certain machines as having significant risk. But on reading the law further, it's actually discovered that the law speaks to significant risk of collision, not to a specific machine. Now, moving forward, the leading practice that was studied from 2013 was launched in 2017. Now, this was aimed at helping the surface sector to reduce the risk of TMM collision to as low as reasonably practicable. And as the law says, where the risk of collision still exists, then only you can apply first PDS, which is just warning, or later when the law kicks in, you will have to also install automatic slowdown and stop. Now, we've been preaching this leading practice from 2017, having gone all over the country with workshops, with regional tripartite forums and so forth. Now, while we were doing that in 2019, we were asked by the Consulting Mechanical and Electrical Engineers Committee to please develop something similar for underground. We once again got an industry team together, a team of engineers from the underground space, both in coal, in hard rock, in the different mines, all the way to the Northern Cape. The team met monthly and used the surface leading practice as a chopping block to develop a technical guide for underground. While that was happening, we also developed a communication tool, which is an online communication tool to assist mines in getting ready to communicate what the regulations are about, what they will mean for operators on surface and operators underground as well. How they will affect your bonus, will it slow down and stop and interrupt production? Just to deal with some of the myths, we have an online communication tool that we launched. In the same year, 2019, towards the end, the Mine Health and Safety Council, which is a tripartite body, has a committee called the Mining Regulations Advisory Committee, MREC. It put together a TMM task team made up of persons from the state, which is from the DMRE, persons from organized labor, and persons from the employer side. And we were fortunate to make part of that team to analyze the state of technology at that stage, end of 2019, and advise MREC on whether they can advise the minister to lift the suspension. Now, that team came up with a long list of issues that needed to be addressed before the minister can lift the suspension. In fact, that team said nothing earlier than 2025. Now, that was presented to the Mine Health and Safety Council board, and it was rejected on the basis that it is too far and people are still dying. What else are we doing in the meantime, or what can you do to accelerate this process to not reach 2025 but come earlier? So in response, the Minerals Council immediately, starting in early 2020, commissioned a project which we call the Special Project on Industry Alignment on TMM Regulations. And the CEO Zero Harm Forum made this commitment that's showing on your right-hand side to say we are still committed to zero harm, and we are investing in the most complex, globally leading collision prevention systems. Like Letitia said, we don't know whether to call it CAS or PDS, because on studying the regulations, we realized that the regulations want the technology to prevent collisions, not necessarily to avoid collisions only. And that we are working with all stakeholders, from the regulator, labor, suppliers, researchers, the Mine Health and Safety Council, in trying to establish and facilitate an ecosystem readiness as quickly as possible, but in a holistic manner that is not just looking at technology, but looking at the broad spectrum. How do we avoid collisions? How do we prevent collisions on surface and underground? While doing that, we would like to strike a balance between saving lives and saving livelihoods, and possibly creating a new value chain in the process. So can we create new employment? Can you create new skills in the process of determining this holistic approach? And lastly, we will harvest and apply all readily available measures to eliminate these transport accidents from things such as traffic management in the process. And the CEOs made a commitment of just under 30 million rands for this process starting in 2020. And just as an announcement while I'm here, in this year, 2022, on the 26th of April, the Mine Health and Safety Council board met and discussed the issue of the lifting of the suspension. In that meeting, they agreed to advise the minister to lift the suspension on 31 December 2023, which is effectively 2024. Now, they have agreed to draft an advisory note that will go to the minister in this regard. We haven't seen the advisory note yet. However, it is recorded in the minutes of the MHSC board that they will advise the minister for such a date. So that is now the date that we are all working towards as an industry, which is earlier than 2025 as previously suggested. So there's a sort of an acceleration that is required. Now, as I mentioned, the TMM task team of 2019 listed a whole list of challenges, and the Minerals Council took it and packaged it in 17 work packages. In orange there at the top is simply the project leadership or project coordination, which is being led by Mr. Stanford Malachi, who's the head of the Learning Hub in the Minerals Council. The first group of work packages looks at reducing the risk of collision to as low as reasonably practicable. This is now effective traffic management. This is, again, taking data from vehicles that we already have, the data that we can already access, interpreting it, and then using it to improve our traffic management. Letitia showed a map with red spots and orange spots. It's that kind of data that we are assisting now to say, how do you pull it? Which data do you look for? We are working with the Mandela Mining Precinct to put together a short guide, nothing big, on which data to pull, how to analyze it, and then reduce or improve your traffic management in those areas. The second group of work packages is what I think most people are interested in. It's the technology portion, the collision prevention systems readiness part. These work packages are aimed at assessing all the way from how many of which type of vehicle do we have in the industry, in which processes do these vehicles operate, what could go wrong while these vehicles are doing this work? So for surface, we look at vehicle to vehicle. For underground, we looked at vehicle to person. So where could collisions potentially occur? And which vehicles will require an upgrade? So that's your legacy equipment, will require a substantial upgrade versus which vehicles will require simple upgrades, which, already vehicles that are CAN bus enabled and so forth. Now, after assessing all those vehicles in work package 7, we look at, all right, what do we need that technology to do? And what does the law require? Then we put that all in a document and documented that. Now, what do we tell the suppliers what the technology needs to do in functional and technical terms? We also put that in a document. How do we test as an industry whether a product that's being supplied can do what it's intended to do? We put that in a document as well in terms of testing protocols. I'll discuss this a bit further. The next group of work packages in green there is the general or what we call the cross-cutting matters. This looks at other issues. You know, one of the minds that was leading in introducing this technology in the underground setup was part of the task team, and they said, the engineering manager said, an operator of mine bumped into me at the mall. He was shaken. You could see there's something bothering him. And he told me that he nearly drove over people crossing a pedestrian crossing at the mall because he is used to operating an LHD underground that slows down and stops when people cross his path. So he was just absent-minded and he thought his buggy will just stop at the pedestrian crossing. So those are unintended consequences of introducing such a technology. In work package 12 there, we want to quantify such unintended consequences. We also want to guide suppliers in terms of legal liability, because you have a third party who's installing something that taps into the brakes of another machine, who's legally liable. We also would like to assist our supervisors and managers to harvest the power of the technology, not just for reducing incidents, but also for production planning purposes. The last group of work packages is international collaboration. Letitia mentioned the Earth Moving Equipment Safety Roundtable, EMIRST. We are working in collaboration with them. We are working in collaboration with the International Council on Mining and Metals and ISO, the International Standards Organization, to make sure that we don't run ahead of what the world is doing, and we influence them to move quicker. Because in South Africa is the only jurisdiction in the world that has a regulator's X hanging over their heads. So we need the international community to move a bit faster in developing some of these technologies, and we are involved in influencing that. All right, so now colleagues, I'm gonna just break it down a little bit. Like I said, I'm going to show you where you can find these documents and how each of them links into each other. Anton, I won't be more than 10 minutes more. The most traffic management leading practice, as mentioned, it falls into that first group of work packages, which is aimed at reducing the risk of collision. Letitia showed levels 1 to 9 earlier. This plays in the space of level 1 to 6 to say, how do we help you to assess what's going on in your operation in terms of movement, and then put controls in place to reduce potential collisions. Now, it is packaged in an adoption guide. The TMLP stands for Traffic Management Leading Practice. It is packaged in the form of an adoption guide, where part 2 is a step-by-step process that we would like you to follow so that you can do your change management even well. So each step is put in such a manner that you take the people along with you on the journey, and things are done systematically and sustainably. Anton mentioned, how do you maintain, if a control is put in place, how do you make sure that it keeps being done the same way, even going forward? Now that is built into this part 2 of the document. So part 2 is more of the change management, but we advise that people follow the step-by-step up to step 14, and then only consider the controls, the technical elements which are contained in part 3. Now this for engineers is easy, and managers, because this is what tells you how high should your berm be if you have which type of vehicles, how wide should your road be for which types of vehicles, what is the maximum turning curving radius, what slope should you construct your roads to so that you have water runoff. How should your brake test ramp look? Where should it be positioned? So these are technical elements, easy things that come in part 3. And these are what the team with Letitia back in the day called the best of breed, because they moved around from operation to operation throughout South Africa to look at who's doing what very well in which area. And it goes all the way from the provincial road at element 2 there, into your pit, plant, and back out. What is happening in terms of movement, and what could go wrong, and what are the best of the best doing to control those interactions. It may seem overwhelming, but to unlock which ones you need, it is all contained in element one. Element one, like Leticia said earlier, she showed a few pictures. You assess who is going where, with what, and what could go wrong in terms of movement while that movement is happening. And we realized very quickly that minds are struggling with this particular element. So we put together a 4-page guide that can be found on the MOSH website. You can also point your camera phone to the QR code there on the right. It's on the mosh.co.za. It's a 4-page guide, colleagues, that is so easy to use, that explains the why and the how and the what you will need to conduct an effective traffic flow analysis. Once you know this, once you are aware of what movement is happening on your operation, it is very easy to put in the relevant controls. It takes time, unfortunately, so it is better to start as early as you possibly can. We always advise people to kick it off and have weekly sessions of giving this attention. If you don't give it attention, you will wait until it's too late. We know operations, Anton can bear testimony to operations that did this, created separation, created one-way flow, blocked, product trucks from coming into the operation willy-nilly. They have controlled movement, one-way traffic flow, and so forth. And I believe any reasonable inspector would drive into an operation and feel that the risk of TMM collision on this operation is low, it is not significant. So they do not need to apply that expensive technology that is required. Now, moving on to the CPS readiness, which was now this portion of the project. I'm going to start sort of backwards. And like I said, because time now is not on our side, we needed to have an accelerated CPS product development and validation process. But for that, we needed functional and technical performance requirements to give to suppliers of TMM to say, how must your machine be able to adapt or receive slow down and stop technology, and to give to collision prevention technology suppliers to say, how must your collision device adapt to a TMM, and what must it be able to do? Now, for that, we needed to know, what does the user want? What does a mine do? What processes are involved in a mine? And how should this technology, one, enhance what's happening on the mine, two, not interrupt mining operations, and three, protect vehicles from colliding with each other, and prevent vehicles from colliding with persons. So those are the user requirements. Going into the user requirements, we had to analyze, what does the South African regulation want? Not what do suppliers want to give us in terms of what their technologies are able to do. What does the regulation want? Also, what is available internationally, and what has been available internationally to guide us? What risks are there? Processes, mining processes, like I said earlier, we analyzed which vehicles operate where and what could go wrong. How many of which vehicles do we have, and so forth. We also looked at local and international standards to go into the functional and technical performance requirements. We looked at electromagnetic interference, electromagnetic compatibility, because in the coal sector, where their collision prevention devices are highly affected by electromagnetics, they are distorted, they get false warnings, and so forth. What must it do? Interoperability in an operation with, let's say, a PDS supplier A. If a PDS supplier B comes onto site, how should they communicate? What is the standard there? Zone functionality, how should the zone around the machine behave? At what speeds, at what loads, bucket up, bucket down, how should it behave? So all of these, colleagues, were put into several documents which are available. And these are available now, have been loaded on the MOSH website under the Transport and Machinery tab. You can go to documents there, and you will find the CPS technical documents drop down. Now, this can be overwhelming. So we've put them in a documentation tree, which shows which of the documents are available and who are they applicable to. Is it the TMM supplier? Is it the product, the collision prevention system supplier? Or is it you, the mine, who needs to read and be informed about which document? Letitia earlier mentioned, a score of 28 out of 40 and 67 out of 100 and so forth. Now, these are scores from these two checklists, which were developed specifically to say, we have a lot of documents here, but here's a checklist for your TMM supplier to check themselves on whether their TMM systems are ready for the new requirements. And here's a document number 8 there for your CXD or collision awareness and avoidance device supplier to check themselves on whether their device does conform to the new requirements. We will be able to test them, on that number 3, testing specifications and so forth. But in the meantime, let them perform this gap analysis and, inform you as the user on whether they are ready or they will be ready in a certain time frame before the end of December 2023, hopefully. Now, lastly, colleagues, like I said, it's a whole lot of documents, and it's difficult to explain how each one falls into another one and so forth. We've also put together an infographic document. It's a PDF document that is, fun to read. It's also downloadable, freely available on the MOSH website, Transport and Machinery, under Documents. And I would advise colleagues to have a look at it. It starts off with explaining, the TMM regulations. I've just cut it off. It's a whole page. It also speaks about the project terminology. I spoke about CXD, CPS, and so forth. You'll find them there. Then it goes into operational readiness issues, both for surface and underground, which is the traffic management issues that I just spoke about. If you look there on the bottom left, there's separation on the whole roads using berms, the separation of HMEs and LDVs and so forth. It also speaks about, the regulatory implications. What do the regulations actually say and what are the implications? There's a big danger that we've been, tiptoeing around as an industry, but it will come in and sort of affect us, is the issue of LDVs. How do you automatically slow down and stop an LDV if you're not going to separate it, or if you're not going to stop operations every time it interacts with HME? This is discussed in there. There are a lot of other pages, colleagues. I'm not going to go into each one of them. And I will encourage you to visit the MOSH website under the Transport and Machinery tab on the documents, and you will find a bit of guidance there. And do adopt the traffic management leading practice if you haven't adopted it yet. Thank you. Thank you, Anton. I hope I stuck to my time, and apologies for that initial struggle there. Thanks. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Nsiki. Yeah, folks, I think Nsiki's given us a lot of food for thought there. Just on a few comments I'd like to make, Nsiki, just to add on to your very comprehensive presentation there. You mentioned that the elements could be overwhelming, and folks, yes, initially it does look like it's overwhelming. But my advice to you, and having been through this process myself, so I think I can speak from a bit of experience, is to take small bites at a time. You need to have a dedicated person who's going to run with this, and just start. Please, just start. And get the things going. The sooner you start, the sooner you're going to have your systems in place. Then the other, just a bit of lightheartedness, but it works very well, is when you've got your traffic management plan in place, do the spouse test. A spouse test is you take your wife and let her drive you through your operation, and you'll very quickly, she'll be able to tell you, does she feel safe or doesn't she feel safe? Or your husband for that matter. Generally, it's better to have a lady to do it because ladies have a better sense of danger and how to avoid it. Men are a bit macho with that one. So yeah, yeah, we've got. Let's not go there. It generally works very well, and it's just also another set of eyes, independent eyes that helps you there. Yeah. Folks, any questions there for Nsiki? I hope we haven't scared everyone that they've all run away because of what we've said today. But I think it's important that we had this discussion, and I sincerely hope that everybody that's on the call has benefited from it. Letitia, is there anything you'd like to add? Oh, wait, there's a hand. Julius?
Yes, good morning, everyone. From my side, I'm Julius Musana, the former inspector of machinery. So now I've joined the mines, so I'm in Vergenoeg Mining Company. So I don't have a question for Ntiki, but just a comment to say that was informative, because here where I am, the traffic management plan, we don't have any, so it's something that I'm starting to implement. So thanks for the information. It helped, and it's gonna help for me. So I really appreciate that. Thanks.
Thank you, Julius.
Thanks,
yeah,
Julius.
It's nice to be on the other side of the desk now, isn't it?
True. Different.
Anthony, you must not be hard on Julius. He was my right-hand man at Ukosi, so you must treat him gently.
Okay, no, I'm just asking. I was just asking.
Yeah, colleagues, maybe Anton, just a closing remark from my side. Remember, the law says the employer must apply all reasonably practicable measures to prevent collisions. And then where the risk still remains significant, only then apply the technology. It's a sour pill to swallow, but if you already have PDS, your warning, it means that you have identified that you do have significant risk of collision. So when the regulations kick in, if you have not changed anything else on your operation, you will have to go into automatic slowdown and stop. This is an opportunity, if you haven't done so, to assess your operation, reduce the risk of collision, and possibly use your PDS to even improve it further so that you reduce the risk of collision from significant to reasonably practicable, so that when the regulation does kick in, you can actually remain with PDS, and your PDS, please take it through the checklist as well. Let your supplier assess themselves, because we do not want the PDS going off when there's nothing that the operator should actually do. The law is specific. The warning must be an effective warning, meaning that the operator must do something when they get the warning. If they get used to the warning, there's a vehicle 30 meters away, there's no danger of collision, but they get a beep, then they become desensitized. So the new requirements, the new functional technical performance requirements have eliminated that. So if you already have PDS, please let them go through it as well, so that their effective warning is taken through the test as well, to see that during normal operation, no warning will be given. Warning will be given when the operator needs to do something, either swerve or hit the brakes, but only when they need to do something in a potential collision. Thank you, Anton, and thank you once again for the invitation, colleagues.
Thank you very much, Nsiki. Folks, yeah, I think what Nsiki was saying there is actually quite vital. It's time to do it and get the things in, because you can save yourself an enormous amount of money and effort. And just something else on to add on to what Nsiki was saying, and I found this personally. Once we put in a traffic management system, an effective one, our productivity with loading of trucks and dispatching and of production. Our productivity increased considerably because we didn't have the congestion, we didn't have the bunching of trucks waiting to be loaded, etc. The whole process flowed a lot easier. So, there are benefits in this. Please look at it from a positive aspect, and let's get it installed and implemented as soon as possible. Folks, are there any other questions or comments that somebody would like to make? Please feel free. You're very welcome.
Hello, Anthony. I've got a question.
Please do, David.
I don't know if I missed maybe somebody elaborating on this, but do we have anybody that's been exempted from PDS systems yet?
There have been a few operations that have been given verbal exemption. So yeah, it is possible that there are some.
Is it possible to get a sort of layout or visual kind of report to just maybe pick on some ideas there, if possible, that we can share,
David, I'm hesitant to say yes. I'm sure the guys would be willing to share what they've done with you. The point is you've got to have certain things in place. As Letitia and Nsiki referred to earlier on, you have to have your risk assessments done properly. You've got to go through the various stages before the regulator or the authorities are going to even consider giving you exemption. So my advice would be, and Letitia and Nsiki, please chip in here if you think I'm not right. My advice would be to start with the MOSH system and work through it with them, because then you're going to have your foundation in place, which is your risk assessment, and they will assist you to implement the various procedures that you need to go.
Thank you so much for that.
Ntiki, do you go with me on that one, or
yes, definitely, Anton. I fully agree. Colleagues, as Letitia mentioned, those 9 levels of control, you cannot go straight into the technology if your traffic management and separation and operator discipline is not right. You will stop your operation if you do that. It happened at Kumba Session, where they invested millions. I mean, it was 900,000 per machine that they spent. They switched that thing on and it was chaos. They had to switch it off, reroute their vehicles, create one-way traffic flow, remove four-way stops and so forth, only for it to work. So you have an opportunity now to go to the MOSH website, Transport and Machinery, register to adopt the traffic management leading practice, and we will assist you for free. I forgot to mention this, Anton, for free. Walk with you through the journey and assist you to reduce the risk of collision as far as reasonably practicable as we can. Thanks.
Just on that, folks, the MOSH does do it for free. There's no catch there. They would appreciate a nice lunch when they are with you, but other than that, it's not there's no hidden cost at all. What it really needs, and I want to emphasize this, it needs commitment from management. This thing needs to be implemented and needs to be driven by somebody who is passionate about it and wants to, you need to want to strive to a zero harm thing. The other side of the traffic management systems, once you'll find that your proper traffic management system actually supports and enhances your any electronic or technological implementation there. Without the two work hand in hand, there's absolutely no doubt about it. So David, for you to answer your question again, please let's start with the basics and get things. You're going to save yourself a hang of a lot of money, time, and effort. Okay. Anybody else that would like to say anything? All right, folks. Seeing that I think everyone's very quiet. I hope we haven't frightened you and given you a heart attack here. But on today's meeting, firstly, thank you very much for dialing in. We really appreciate. We had a fantastic response here. We had just over 40 people, which is really brilliant. Thank you to the speakers, Nsiki and Letitia, for your input. That was really top class. And Letitia said to me early on, she's not a specialist, but yeah, I think after today we will certainly give you and Nsiki that stamp of approval. And then to Annika, thank you, Annika, for organizing today. Annika does a huge amount of work in the background that nobody knows about. She put the whole thing together, so well done on that. And folks, please be safe, keep your operations running, and we'll meet again at the next meeting. So from my side, thank you very much, and have a good day. Goodbye.
Thank you, Anthony.
Thank you, Anthony.
Bye.
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 Bye.